Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you guys. I'm going to start off with just immediately saying I'm sorry. And I say I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. I say I'm sorry because I can't avoid the whole entire conversation about Zillow, Compass, private listings, and all that. I am trying when I go into the morning, and I'm just being fully honest here. When I go into every morning and I begin to look at the news sources in regards to the real estate industry, the only thing that's coming up is this whole discussion. So I am literally trying to avoid this conversation. And I'm serious. I am literally trying to do this, and I cannot avoid it. So I say that to say I'm sorry again. I've got to go there. So, and it's kind of funny as I follow a few other YouTubers and guys that cover the real estate news and more specifically and help real estate agents, that kind of stuff. And I watch them. And yesterday they were all posting about this. Zillow is now suing an MLS and Compass and what that's about. And so the saga continues. And because I have decided to have a show talking about real estate news in the mornings, I've got to cover these things. So, but I am getting tired of it. It's a lot of just back and forth stuff, and it's exhausting. So, I'm saying this out the gate. I'm sorry that I got to go there again. Okay, just so you guys know, that's where we're going to go today. So. Hopefully I don't lose any viewers because of this, because I know it's getting exhausting. But I will say, even though it's exhausting, it's still very relevant. These type of moving pieces and these chess pieces that are being played, they do trickle down and do affect us as agents. They have an effect on us. So we got to pay attention. So let's be very discerning and diligent in what we do. So, all right, with all that being said, thank you guys for being here. Before I get into the actual show, though, I typically will set kind of the groundwork and the stage about what this is and that kind of stuff. So what I do here is invite you into my private office here, drink some coffee, hang out, go over some news articles about what's going on in the news industry, in the real estate industry specifically. Most of the time, it's more bent towards helping real estate agents, but I got a lot of everyday people that just looking to buy and sell property that still gain some value out of the show. So you can gain something out of this as well if you are just a buyer, a seller, or just somebody that just loves real estate, or if you're thinking about getting into real estate as a real estate agent. This is kind of what this is. My goal here is to go live Monday through Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. I stream on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, TikTok, and I think that might be it. And you can watch me in different formats. On the TikTok side of things, yesterday, people were trying to help me with some camera angles and that kind of stuff, and I'm all in for that. Like, I want to kind of make it a little bit better of an experience for you guys on TikTok. So that's a goal of mine. I'm going to work towards doing that to make it a little bit more streamlined and look better for you guys to kind of participate in this live show. I know that's what you guys want, and I totally get it. It's not really put together the way I would like it to be. But anyway, I go through the real estate news. That's what I talk about. Give you some of my insight, my observations, help you guys to stay on point and keep your fingers on the pulse like I do every single day. So that's what this show's about. So, and then I was asked also, how do I find your YouTube channel? A few people actually messaged me that. I think because TikTok, I can't share certain things and all this kind of stuff. And maybe I can, maybe I just don't understand it completely yet. People have asked me, how do I get to YouTube? So let me just show you this, and I'll also do this on the TikTok side of things. This is the YouTube channel. You can go there by youtube.com/The Real Estate Advantage. Okay, so that's the link. That's where it's going to take you directly to this page. You're looking for this guy here. That's the picture. That's the logo. That's the thing. Appreciate any kind of subscribers I can get, likes, follows, all that kind of stuff is always appreciated. But I thank you guys for coming back. But that's how you find it. For those that were asking, that's how you find my channel. Look, I'm not big. I'm just growing the same because I like doing it, and I find it extremely fun. But that's where it's at. Now, before we get into the actual show, let's just briefly talk about the real estate interest rates. And just so you guys know, too, is I will not be live streaming tomorrow. This will be the last live stream for this week. I get to go to one of my offices and present some amazing agents some awards for their dedication to the industry back in 2025. So we're going to be giving those awards out. I'm a little late in the season, but we had a conference we had to go to as far as the company's concerned in Vegas, so that delayed kind of the award ceremonies. So I'm going to be doing 2 of those this week. So I'm super excited about that because I like recognizing the hard work that the agents have given to the clients, and they need to be appreciated. So I'm looking forward to that. So agents that are watching out of my offices, I'm coming to you. So we're going to be doing that. So, but then let's talk about the interest rates as a whole real quick. I went over this a couple times, and today, unfortunately, it's now up above the 6.5% range. So if you go to Mortgage News Daily, Mortgage News Daily will show you the interest rates kind of on a daily basis. Now, given local banks and things like that can do things differently, so don't shop around. But this is just a very simple way to kind of pull those numbers. They also have an app that you can download. It's got mortgage calculators, things like that on it. And it just has great, quick information. So if you want to know what the interest rate kind of roughly is, this is a great way to do it. So unfortunately, the 30-year fixed rate is at 6.56%, which is actually up 0.07% since yesterday. So it's trickling up a little bit as we go into spring. And it's unfortunate. There's all kinds of different factors. We talk about them on the show all the time. But yeah, we're above the 6.5, which means when you get the way this kind of works is like when you go above the 6.5 rate, that means your FHA and VA is now above 6. So it goes up kind of about 0.5% roughly, somewhere in there. So now FHA, 30-year FHA is sitting at 6% even, and then at VA is 6.02. So but let's keep it in perspective, guys. Like, this is still a low interest rate compared to historical norms. So let's don't get into the weeds just a little bit and worry about all that too much. All right. With that being said, let me talk about what I'm going to be covering today. So today, I think it was yesterday, news broke that Zillow is now suing Compass and Chicago's MLS over private listing battle. So we're going to talk about that and give you some of my observations and my opinions about this. And remember, these are my opinions. If you want to disagree with me, you can do so. You can let me know in the chat if you want to disagree. I don't mind that at all. I'm reading these things, listening, paying attention, dissecting a little bit, and thinking through the logistical outcomes of these things. So I'm reading these articles and I'm giving you my opinion on them. And I find it a very interesting conversation, and many things are kind of moving, and it's kind of fascinating. As much as I am over it, it's still very relevant. So we're going to go over that and what that looks like. Then we've got an op-ed that is, it says the MLS is not a product, it's infrastructure. It says a cooperative marketplace only works when brokers trust the infrastructure supporting it. So now we're having a little bit of a conversation about the MLS, what it is, what it isn't, framing that in correctly. Because I will say this, and this is why I chose this article, is there's a lot of times that all the noise like we hear like this on the corporate level and these lawsuits and things like that, we begin to lose focus about what some of these things are for and what they're actually designed to be there for. And so this article kind of helps us frame that in a little bit better. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll go into an article. It says the sovereignty of the brokerage. It says Home Services, Keller Williams, join listing exchange powered by Cotality. It says the idea behind it is to be proactive so that no matter what changes, whether we stay at 450 MLSs or it gets consolidated down to 100 or whatever may come, we'll be in a position to be able to respond and act appropriately within the marketplace. Home Services of America's CEO Chris Kelly told RIS Media. So we got a 3-article phase here. Okay, we're going to be talking about Zillow and their lawsuit and what that looks like and why they're doing it and all this kind of pandering, all this kind of stuff. Then we're going to help ourselves frame ourselves and our minds around what the MLS is. And then we're going to go into a conversation talking about kind of the importance of hedging our business models and our practices around how we stay relevant and what that might look like going into the future, regardless of what happens on the national stage, right? Regardless of what happens between all these big corporations. So this is the conversation we're going to have. And then if we have time, if we get to this point, and maybe we will, maybe we won't, I don't know. But I've got one final article that we'll try to get to. And it's basically talking about HUD rolling back some of the fair housing guardrails that we have always had in regards to crime stats and school ratings. Traditionally, and most agents would not share crime statistics or school ratings because it was deemed, a violation of fair housing to do so. There's a little bit of where HUD is rolling back some of those guardrails and giving some leniency for agents to be able to share that information. Now, the National Association of Realtors is still dissecting this, looking through this. There's not a direct policy on what this looks like. It's still kind of being discussed on how this correlates and is there any kind of possibility for steering to take place and all that kind of stuff. So if we get to this point, we'll have that conversation as well. I might push this to another day because, to be honest, it's not really, went all the way through all observations and all angles to see if this is a thing, but it's being discussed. So it's worth us kind of talking about and keeping our fingers on that pulse, but we'll see if we get there. All right. So hopefully we do, because I'd like to talk about something else other than all this warring going on with the MLSs. All right. With all that being said, there's a stage set. It took me a little bit of time to get through that, but grab your cup of coffee or tea, and let's get started with the show. Welcome to the Real Estate Brief. I'm Adam, and today we're cutting through the noise. We're going to get to the truth in the news, look at the data, and I'm going to give you some of my observations and where I believe you can find opportunity. So if you're ready to gain your real estate edge, let's dive into our very first story. And this first story is going to come from Inman. You guys know that I'm a fan of Inman and RIS Media because they are real estate agent-specific news organizations. There is no affiliate marketing going on here. It's just that they are a great source for information. So this article is coming from Inman first, and this is really focused on the lawsuit that Zillow has levied against Compass and what's called MRED. And MRED is a MLS in Chicago, and there's kind of a war going on here. Zillow is taking the fight for data to the courtroom now, and they're suing Compass and Chicago's MLS over private listings. Okay, this isn't just a legal spat, though. It's a battle over who controls the information that your clients can see before it hits the open market. So it's a battle over that, okay? And we've been talking about this a lot. And unfortunately, we got to do it again. Now, as we go through this article, what we're going to see is Zillow is alleging that private listing networks, the PLNs, they are being used to bypass the open market. And what they are arguing is it is creating a walled garden of data. Okay? That's Zillow's position. The lawsuit specifically is targeting MRED, which is Midwest Real Estate Data Exchange out of Chicago, and Compass. And what they're claiming is an antitrust violation and anti-competitive behavior. Okay? Zillow is also arguing that withholding pocket listings from third-party aggregators like Zillow harms the transparency and consumer choice. Okay? This case could set a massive precedent for how coming soon and private listings are handled nationwide, depending on how far this lawsuit goes. So that is what Zillow is alleging. That is what they're making their argument and their case based on. And I find it fascinating. Because here's the thing. Now, I know we're going to get into this article, but let me just set the stage just a little bit more. We have this big argument going on about private listings. Compass has a marketing plan and an idea behind why they want to do it this way. And other brokerages also have that same understanding about how this is beneficial. And I'm not going to go into all that. I've done multiple videos on that. Go back and watch my live stream on my channel, YouTube channel. You can go check those things out. But they argue that there's a way to market this. Okay? Zillow did not like that. Zillow did not like that Compass was taking a position of not automatically syndicating to their site. So they retaliated with banning anybody that goes private listing at all for over 24 hours. And the ban means that if you were to do the way Compass wants to do it, mind you, what their agents decided to do between them and their seller as a brokerage, whatever they decided to do, if they decided to not mass market it to all the portals yet, that if they did that for longer than 24 hours, that listing would be permanently banned from Zillow's site. It would not show back up on there. Okay, so that was Zillow's position. Compass then says, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to negotiate ways to syndicate our properties, but allow us to still market the properties what we feel is best for the agent and the client that the agent represents. If Zillow doesn't want to do that, we'll go and we'll negotiate with MLSs and see if they will agree to do this to give us a way to distribute this information. So the argument that Zillow's making about putting up a walled garden is on their side of it. But is Compass actually doing that? Right? This is, to be honest, it's almost so petty. Like, I mean, when you sit here back and you go like, Zillow's like, I ban your listings. And then when Compass goes around and finds another way to mass produce the properties, Zillow goes, I'm going to bring a lawsuit because you're not playing the way I want you to play, right? It's like a pout move. It's like I'm pouting now to prove a point. That's what it looks like. I mean, am I wrong? Correct me. Let me know if I'm wrong in this. But it looks like they're pouting because they can't control another company. So, all right, let's get into this. Let's get into this crazy article. Let's get into this crazy lawsuit. Zillow sues Compass and Chicago's MLS over private listing battle. The complaint also says that Compass ended its direct listing fee to Zillow on Friday. So Zillow's not happy. Again, remember, Zillow says, I ban you if you do what you want to do with your own properties. I'm going to ban you. I'm going to punish you. And Compass says, okay, I'll go figure out another way. And then now Zillow's like, well, you didn't play ball, so now I'm going to sue you. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, it's like elementary lunch break, you know, and people fight over food or they fight at the playground or whatever. It's comical. Compass International Holdings and the multiple listing service serving the nation's third largest real estate market illegally conspired to threaten to cut off Zillow's access to listings in the region, harming consumers in the process, Zillow wrote in a new antitrust lawsuit filed on Tuesday. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Compass International Holdings, the multiple service, illegally conspired to threaten to cut off Zillow's access to listings. Can we just frame this for just a second? I'm sorry, but like it's almost comical. Compass is its own company. Like, again, I went back to this whole thing. Like, Zillow thinks that they can set the standard on the way marketing is happening with properties. Like, they literally believe this. And now they're making this argument that if a seller decides to list their home with a Compass agent, the Compass agent can explain exactly where their property is going to be marketed to and not. The seller is not an idiot. They can figure out if their property's not going to go to Zillow, if that's good for them or not. Like, these are conversations that can happen. Like, the seller is not required to list with a Compass agent if it's not going to fit them well, right? So the whole thing about, you know, it's just antitrust lawsuit. I mean, these are companies, man. The lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court in Northern Illinois takes aim at Compass's pre-marketing listing strategy, as well as partnership with MRED to distribute Compass listings. The lawsuit is the latest signal that the real estate industry remains engulfed in a debate that could determine how, when, and where listings are marketed moving forward, with potential impacts on portals' access to listings in markets across the country. Yeah. And Zillow, you're showing your hand so well here. Like, you are literally showing your hand. Like, you act like you're there for agents and the consumer. Like, are you serious? Like, no, if Compass and other MLSs decide to work together in mass marketing without you involved, they can do that, guys. Like, if I chose not to syndicate my property anywhere, why don't I have the right to do that, right? Isn't that weird? And this action seeks to restore competition and transparency in residential real estate, Zillow wrote. Again, they try to take the moral high road here. No, it has everything to do with their money. I mean, let's just look at this. Like, if all brokerages that have these listings, that all of them just decided, hey, you know what, Zillow, we're kind of done with you, selling our leads back to us, right? We're kind of done with that. Not that it doesn't matter if other brokerages are talking to other brokers or not, right? If Compass themselves, which is a large company now, 300,000 plus agents, just said, look, you guys aren't in it for my agents, and we're going to protect our agents, and we decided not to syndicate to you. That has nothing to do with antitrust. It has nothing to do with not being transparent. It has nothing to do with even marketing properties. It has everything to do with Zillow's business model, taking advantage of the agent's hard work. That's where it lands. In recent years, some powerful players in the real estate industry, such as MRED, Chicagoland's monopolist multiple listing service, see, these are like monopolist, and Compass, the country's largest real estate brokerage, have erected barriers to information that harm or threaten harm to sellers, buyers, and competitors by hiding real estate listings behind a velvet rope and a private listing network. There's nothing hidden, guys. It is in the best interest of every single agent out there to mass market their properties, guys. Zillow just doesn't like it that it's not on their site. Thank you. Hey, appreciate that. Itsy Browse for the follow. Appreciate that greatly. Thank you. Thank you for joining in. Is that? I think I know who you are. Maybe. Well, welcome in. All right. The lawsuit provided new details that show Zillow faces the threat of losing access to a growing share of real estate listings, which the company has previously deemed the lifeblood of its business. That's the whole argument, guys. That's it. They're going to lose access to the growing share of listing data. The lifeblood. That's the only way they survive. The lawsuit is a continuation of Zillow's effort to prevent the spread of what it called insidious private listings. They are very good. Let's not forget this, guys. Let's not forget this. Zillow is a marketing company, and they're very good with words. Okay? When you start inserting adjectives that are like that, insidious private listings, you're implanting thoughts in the people that are reading this out to be that is what the other people are doing, right? It's a form of gaslighting. It's a form of gaslighting, which it says are harmful to consumers, but it also makes clear that the portal faces a growing threat over its access to listings that fuel its source of revenue. And can I just say this too, that when you start making comments like that, insidious private listings, and you start talking about, lacking transparency, in some ways, you're not even going into the whole argument that Compass is making. You're creating a straw man. You're creating a straw man. You're creating a fictitious position that Compass is taking in regards to your response to it. It's called a straw man. Like, and people that have any kind of, civil debate and in college have been on a debate team can read right through these lines. They can read through this and say, look, gaslighting is absolutely happening here. And you are positioning yourself as being the best by creating a fictitious position of your competitor. Okay? In the complaint, Zillow acknowledged that the partnership between MRED and Compass made it impossible to enforce its listing access standards in Chicagoland over the threat of losing access to all MRED listings. Imagine that, right? So what's this lawsuit really about? Late last month, MRED announced that it was expanding nationwide, and Compass said that it would subsidize the cost to join for up to 100,000 of its agents. A week later, RealTracs, the MLS serving the Nashville area, followed suit, also in partnership with who? Compass. People are just done with the games, guys. They're just done. Zillow also wrote that on May 8th, Compass terminated all of its direct listing feeds with Zillow. However, the company maintains direct feeds with the MLSs directly, and no listings are missing from the portal. Okay? Make note of that. Compass has thus terminated Zillow's direct feed access to more than 25% of the current listings in Chicagoland and ratcheted up its conduct from Chicagoland to nationally. But that could change. Zillow wrote that on May 5th, MRED threatened to cut off Zillow's listing feed from the MLS after Zillow suppressed Compass listings in Florida, Georgia, and California. Zillow wrote. Threatened to cut Zillow listing feeds, yeah. I mean, it's so funny. Zillow is now like putting themselves in the position as a victim, right? It's like, typically like in business too, it's not about being a victim. It's about maybe your business model is becoming broken, right? As technology and AI ramps up and things like that happen, maybe your model's broken. Like, that's a very good possibility here, guys. In effect, the rule change requires Zillow to display, notwithstanding its standards, all Compass listings or risk termination of all RealTrac feeds across all brokerages, Zillow wrote. In other words, RealTracs, like MRED, had agreed to use its control over other brokerages' listings to protect Compass's PLN. Last week, an MLS serving Los Angeles known as the MLS Claw made similar changes that Zillow said mirrored those made by MRED and RealTracs and supported by Compass. Let me ask you this. Is Zillow just going to start levying lawsuits against all these MLSs because they're not getting what they want? Is that really where we're heading here, Zillow? Like you're just going to levy lawsuits against everybody because they're not wanting to send their feed to you? Like, is this how we're going to strong arm this? You know, I made a reference yesterday or the day before that this is the bug's life, right? It's the bug's life, guys. Grasshoppers and ants. Agents are the ants. Zillow's the grasshopper. In its lawsuit, Zillow alleged that MRED and Compass have enacted a per se unlawful boycott of the portal and that MRED is enforcing a monopoly. MRED didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. In a statement, a Compass spokesperson said that Zillow was punishing agents for following their clients' wishes. Compass believes homeowners should have the right to decide how to market their homes, the spokesperson said. The industry is evolving to give consumers more choice, and we support that progress. Okay? There you go. That's what's happening. Now if I find all of it very interesting and fascinating that this is where we're at. You know, it's look, agree, disagree with Zillow, whatever. I think there's just all kinds of noise going on. I think there's tons of noise. And we do need to be careful, okay? As real estate agents, there are certain things. If we are members of the National Association of Realtors, we are required to be compliant and maintain data integrity. And I am all for that, okay? Even though all this warring is going on, I still see value in the MLS. I still see value in the National Association of Realtors. I see reform being important. And this is not an act of defiance. This is just an act of being able to go in, talk to a seller about all options, and having that discussion at the table as an agent and as a client, regardless of anybody else's opinion. And I am all for accuracy in data. And I'm also all for where that data is syndicated to. The agent that is going out, getting the listing, creating the data, the seller and myself should have a say on how that data is used. Period. Right? Period. So I would be compliant. Don't take this and just do whatever you want. Be compliant. Compass is definitely not taking that position. They're not going around saying break rules and all that kind of stuff. That's not what they're doing. They're not for lack of transparency. Okay, that's not the thing. They're not trying to do anything insidious here. They're looking at a system that is broken. They're looking at a system that is broken, and they're bringing reform. That's what's happening here, okay? So let's call it what it is. Let's go into the next piece. Let's go into the next article here to continue this conversation now, okay? So we now talked about Zillow suing, the MLS in Chicago. We now and Compass and what that all looks like. Let's have a conversation though, and we're going to talk about the MLS as an infrastructure, not a product, okay? And this is the thing: is the MLS a tool you buy or the road you drive on? Now, this op-ed that we're going to go over argues that we've stopped looking at the MLS as essential industry infrastructure and we've started treating it like a tech product. And that distinction matters way more than you think, because we can get these kind of things confused, and then we don't understand what these tools are there for. So let's read this together, and we're going to go through this and think through what the MLS is, what it isn't, and how it actually relates to our industry, so we can better frame an understanding around what the MLS is in regards to all the warring going on between Zillow and everybody else. Okay? So we don't want to get confused on this. So let's go into this. All right, title is op-ed. The MLS is not a product, it's infrastructure. A cooperative marketplace only works when brokers trust the infrastructure supporting it. There's a requirement there, right? It's not automatically given. It works when there's trust already built. That's key. Above Howard Hobby Hanna, okay, this is the guy of Howard Hanna, a large, independent kind of franchise, very strong company, to be honest. He says, I have spent my career in this industry watching the multiple listing service, the MLS, do what it was designed to do. Create a level playing field where brokers of every size, every model, and every strategy can compete on merit. The MLS made that possible. It is a reason a one-person boutique firm can compete for the same listing as a national franchise. And the reason consumers in this country have access to more comprehensive market information than buyers and sellers almost anywhere else in the world. That is a very true distinction. The MLS, framed correctly, used correctly, is one of the best advantages we have as real estate agents around the world. We are very blessed to have an MLS system like we have. Okay? Now, it's been contorted and misconstrued and misaligned, and even a lot of MLSs have lost their true, marrying and knowing what they're supposed to be doing. That's happened. The MLS made that possible. That is not a small thing. That is a structural foundation of the American real estate industry, which is why what I am watching happen inside some MLS governance conversations today concern me deeply. Let me start with what the MLS actually is, because I think the industry has started to lose sight of it, and I would agree with this. I think all the noise that we see playing out on the national level in regards to what MLS is and how data is syndicated and what that looks like, and Zillow making all their claims and everything else like that, we're losing sight a little bit. The MLS should operate as a cooperative without profit motive. Okay? Profit should not be the motive behind the MLS or any of the governance committees behind the MLS. It should be a cooperative. In other words, brokers coming together to mass produce those properties that the agents have worked hard to go out and get the listings for, to get the data correct, to have the governance make sure the data is correct, to then be exchanged between other brokers and other agents for the benefit of the whole. Okay? It was created by brokers for brokers. Can we just stop right there? We got to stop, because Zillow and all these portals are trying to frame the narrative around what the MLS is. They're trying to decide what the standard is for your job in the MLS. It's not why the MLS was created. It was created by brokers for brokers. If we take a step back, when I first got into real estate over 20 years ago, we were still using a book transferring over to the very first MLS system. The book was simple, right? Think about this. I would go out and get a listing. I would then go get an ad built to put in the MLS book or the shared book that would be printed and distributed to who? Nobody outside of the real estate industry. It would go straight to the brokers at the table, at the desk, respecting the other broker that went out and procured the data and got it accurately, that had a cooperative agreement for us all to work together. And then we would sit down with our clients, help navigate the situation. Then we'd go out, show properties, and negotiate it. Then it became a database that was digital. It became a product, a program you could download to search properties in real time to get the infrastructure. Still serving the exact same purpose. Broker to broker, built by brokers, for brokers. And Zillow wants you to believe that it's a walled garden. Well, anybody out there in public traded companies or any kind of industry can go out and revolutionize anything they want. They can go out and create their own network if they wanted to. But let's not forget this, that as real estate agents, we have fiduciary to protect and stand up for our clients, and on both sides of the aisle. So we believe that people need representation to protect their interest in one of the most complex processes that they've ever done in their lives. And some only do a couple times or a few times in their entirety of their lives. They need representation. So if we're going to go out and create the product, we should be able to control the data and what happens with it. Okay? This was the MLS. This was the beginning of the MLS. It says to facilitate the voluntary sharing of listing data between agents who have sellers and agents who have buyers. That is the purpose. What does it say? Voluntary. There's no coercion. There's no force. It was a voluntary thing, that just the natural bent of myself that is going to outlist a property and wants to market that property. I would be very willing to work with any broker out there and any agent out there, right? To mass produce my property. A seller sits down with an agent at the kitchen table, signs a listing agreement, and consents to share their property with the brokerage community so that a buyer can be found as efficiently as possible. The MLS exists to support and protect that cooperative spirit. That's what it's there for. Okay? That's its purpose. That's it. It was never designed to be a lead generation platform. Right? Was it? Was it? It was never designed to create marketplace that intermediates the relationship between the listing broker and the buying public. and it was never designed to become a monetized product. It's not what it was designed for. Remember, it's built by brokers for brokers. It's the foundational definition of what the MLS is. The listings that flow into the MLS were won through the skill, relationships, and hard work of listing agents. Those agents and brokers made a cooperative agreement to share inventory with other brokers who have buyers. They did not agree to hand that inventory to third parties to build entirely different businesses on top of it. That's not what it was there for. That was not the purpose, right? Think about this. And I mentioned this a while ago. When you as an agent, when you're out there and you go into the seller's home, where's Zillow at in that equation? Where's the portals at? Where's Realtor.com at in that equation? When you're going through and there's a requirement to make sure there's a standardization of the data, to make sure it's accurate inside of our system, what does Zillow and Realtor.com have anything to do with that, right? They're not in that equation at all. Where are they when it gets difficult and there's even issues coming up with inspections and everything else that we got to help navigate? Where are they at, right? Where are they at? That distinction matters enormously, and we have allowed it to blur for too long. Think about what actually happens when a listing agent wins a listing. That agent has prospected, built a relationship, delivered a compelling presentation, negotiated the terms, and earned the seller's trust. That is where the real value is created. What the industry has allowed to happen is that the agent who did the work to win the listing is increasingly surrendering the customer relationship and the ability to market that property to platforms that had nothing to do with creating the value in the first place. That's a great quote. That's a great social media post right there. They had nothing to do with it, guys. Nothing to do with any of it. It's your license, it's your insurance, it's your expertise, it's your responsibility, not theirs. They want you to believe that they can set the standard. They want you to believe that anything you do outside of what they demand is insidious. Their words. Their words. It's insidious. Go look up that definition that they chose to use, right? If I go back to that article, right? Isn't that exactly what they said? Right there it is. It says the lawsuit is continuation of Zillow's effort to prevent the spread of what it called insidious private listings, which it says are harmful to consumers. Really? You get to make that call? Some of the decisions made around listing distribution and internet display in the early days of the internet should be reconsidered given the market dynamics we see today. How about we go back and look at history and see how that used to be distributed and what these portals were back then and how they actually related themselves to agents and how they supported agents and what that looked like. That would be a great note for these portals to go back to and look at, because they did care about the agent and they actually did care about the consumer. And all of a sudden it's morphed into something way more insidious. The MLS is not a product. It is an infrastructure. There's a meaningful difference. Infrastructure exists to serve the participants who built it and depend on it. Right? Who did that? We did. A product exists to generate revenue for whoever controls it. When the MLS starts functioning more like a product, someone is capturing value that belongs to the brokers and sellers who created it. Is this not what we are seeing, guys? That someone is rarely the broker. It is rarely the agent. And is certainly not the seller sitting at the kitchen table who consented to share their home with the brokerage community, not with the internet at large. I mean, do you realize this? That these portals out there, when you go out and list a property and you throw it and it syndicates everywhere, that these portals right beside that listing uses the data of that property to create a negotiation guide for somebody wanting to make an offer on that property on how to talk down that seller on the price. They're on there. That brings us to the governance conversations happening inside some MLSs today. The MLS is becoming increasingly politicized, not everywhere and not in every boardroom, but the trend is real. When an MLS writes rules with specific business models in mind, if they're writing rules that benefit somebody outside of the agents that they serve, we've got a problem. When policy decisions are made based on which firms they advantage or disadvantage, Trust in the system starts to erode. And the MLS only works when everyone trusts it. Remove that trust, and you do not have a weaker MLS. You have a fragmented market where data lives in silos. Consumers lose transparency, and the firms with the most resources to build proprietary alternatives become the only ones positioned to benefit. And here's the thing. Some people are making the argument on the other side of the aisle. Even agents are making this argument that Compass and other brokerages that are trying to push back against these portals is trying to do that very thing. But then they negate to understand the conversations that Robert Refkin, that owns Compass, is actually doing. If you monitor what he's doing, the whole fact that Zillow is now suing an MLS is because Robert Refkin understands the importance of the MLS being the infrastructure and not a product. Otherwise, he wouldn't be going out talking to MLSs like he's doing. He talked to Tennessee and Chicago. He's not trying to build a walled garden. He's putting the portals on notice that their system is broken. Right? So agents out there that are thinking that Compass and all these kind of people are going out there trying to create something just for themselves is not paying attention. They're not watching the movement. They're not watching the chess game being played out in front of them. They're just part of another pawn. Wake up, guys. Wake up. Read the news. Look what's actually happening here. I run a long-established brokerage operating across multiple states, and Howard Hanna has the stability operation. Okay, I'm not writing this to protect our competitive position. Howard Hanna will be fine. I'm writing this because the broker community, large and small, independent and franchise, traditional and alternative model, has a shared interest in keeping the MLS what it was designed to be. Nobody disagrees with that, guys. No company out there would disagree with that statement right there. The moment we allow it to become something else, we lose the infrastructure that makes cooperative competition possible in the first place. You get the idea. I don't want to keep going on about this. The articles that if you guys want to read this, you guys can find those in my YouTube description of this live stream. Go back and read this. You can kind of see what's going on here, and give me your opinions. I'm all for it. I let me know if you disagree with me. That's fine. That's fine. Give me the data. If you want to disagree with me, bring something of value back that I can read and dissect and find the truth in. Great, do it. I'm all in. I'm all in. I'll read anything. I read all of the time, guys, all of the time. And I see a lot of disconnection from the portals out there in regards to who's actually feeding them. Their entire business model is built off the back of agents. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Let's see, what time is it? 9:12. Okay. Let's see. Do I want to do this? I think I'm kind of, to be honest, I think I'm kind of done on talking about that. I'm going to skip that article. We are going to go into a whole nother topic. I think this has been beat to death. I had to cover the news. It's like I said, I'm so sorry. I told you at the very beginning. If you've been watching that this was going to happen. All right. This next one, we're going to switch gears now. We're going to be talking about something completely different. And this is just a discussion that's getting started. It's not been, kind of all thought all the way through and what the implications are, but it is a topic. And so we're going to go into this. The title of this is HUD Rolls Back Fair Housing Guardrails on Crime Stats and School Ratings. The subheading is the real estate industry was told to revisit training materials and public statements on the topics. Okay, so this is what's happening. And what is really happening here is HUD is making in some arenas, a controversial move to some degree. They are rolling back a lot of those guardrails that we've seen that is regarding the crime stats, school ratings, and about us agents being able to put that into our verbiage with our clients and going over those details with them. Okay. And what that looks like in regards to fair housing and how we navigate this effectively. And just to give some context, really, for the most part of my entire career in real estate, agents would never go there. Matter of fact, I remember having a trainer, he's passed away, but he was a great educator and teacher in real estate. And when he got into any kind of topic that was outside of the preview of what a real estate agent is responsible for sharing, he would always say, like, when someone would ask him a question that did not relate to his job, "You're asking me?" In other words, why are you asking me that? I don't have anything to say to that. That's not my job, right? That's not what I'm here for, right? So you're asking me? And the crime data of a specific home in a specific area, school data in a specific area was one of those areas. Like, that's information that can be found elsewhere, okay? So for my entirety, we never shared that information. We never talked about it. But now critics and everybody else is starting to argue that we should be sharing that. There's a First Amendment duty to share that to people that are buying certain areas. Not that we are given information and using our own opinions. That is definitely not allowed. But using sources that are posting that data, they're making the argument that we should be sharing that to our clients. Okay, so this is the next big topic I feel like that's coming out. Where do we land? Because some critics to the idea of rolling back these guardrails is going to say it's going to increase the ability for agents to steer, which is a discriminatory practice that allows the agent and the consumer to talk about these things that leads them away from a certain community based upon many different factors, right? And it can be discriminatory. So this is the balancing act, right? So let's talk about this because we need to be paying attention and where this lands and see where this goes. It says HUD rolls back fair housing guardrails on crime stats and school ratings. It says the real estate industry was told to revisit training materials and public statements on the topics. In a new open letter, Craig Traynor, Assistant Secretary for Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is HUD, has asserted that sharing crime and school data is wrongly equated with racial discrimination. Contrary to publicly available materials from industry leaders on steering, real estate agents and brokers do not violate the Fair Housing Act merely by discussing with prospective homebuyers or renters the prevalence of crime or the quality of schools and neighborhoods. The letter said, citing an article from the National Association of Realtors titled, "Is this a safe neighborhood?" Don't answer that. Both NAR and real estate portals have made a point in recent years of encouraging agents to prevent steering by directing clients' inquiries about schools and crime statistics to third-party resources in order to avoid expressing subjective assessments of neighborhoods. Simply put, someone asks us that question, it's like, well, there are a lot of websites out there. I'll give you a couple links. You can go and look at that data yourself. Okay? That would be like the typical response. Here's school data, crime data, whatever. You guys go check that out. It's not really my job to make you aware about certain things going on. Traynor's letter characterizes such advice as a result of Biden-era policies, pointing to the 2021 HUD memorandum redressing our nation's and the federal government's history of discriminatory housing practices and policies. It's a long title. Which it says is superseded by President Trump's April 23rd, 2025 executive order, which is restoring equality of opportunity and meritocracy. Meritocracy. Can't pronounce that one. In arguing for the permissibility of disclosing school and crime statistics, Traynor's letter cites First Amendment concerns, and he asserts, quote, if the act made it illegal for real estate agents to discuss schools or crime in a neighborhood, grave First Amendment concerns would arise. Indeed, the act provides that it is the policy of the United States to provide within constitutional limitations for fair housing throughout the United States. Okay, so there's a fair housing issue, but then there's a First Amendment issue. Okay, so we got a contrasting issue here. In addition, Traynor emphasized that agent intent is now part of the equation for assessing whether or not steering has occurred. It says this, case law and the department's own regulations make clear that statements made without the intent to direct a client based on his race or the prevailing racial characteristics of a neighborhood do not constitute unlawful racial steering. The department's regulations emphasize that racial steering consists of discouragement, communication or action because of race. That's the distinction. Okay, so what is the racial steering? It consists of discouragement for that person, a communication directly communicating something about that, or an action because of the race of the individual. A discriminatory action taken because of a particular factor necessarily involves an intentional choice in which that factor plays some role in the actor's thinking. Trainer ended by calling on the real estate industry to revisit ethics training materials and reconsider public statements around the topic. So he goes on about multiple different things here. I'm just beginning to pay attention to this. We're not going to go into too much detail about this today. And we're going to hear, I'm going to read NAR's response to the letter, where they land, and we're going to just end it there for now, and we'll see what happens. I do see a lot of conversations happening here and where this ends. Okay, so Inman reached out to NAR for a response, and this is what they received. Here is a response from the National Association of Realtors in response to HUD, okay? It says, we appreciate the ongoing dialogue and guidance from the administration on this important issue. As a leading voice for real estate professionals, the National Association of Realtors brings deep expertise in fair housing and how it is applied in practice every day. We are carefully reviewing the letter and its implications for our members and the consumers they serve. We look forward to continued engagement with the administration and other stakeholders to ensure clear guidance that supports both compliance and the ability of realtors to effectively serve clients in every zip code across the country. It ends with, in addition, the trade group said it would soon publish a more in-depth policy response. That's where we land right now. We don't have any clarity. If you are a member of the National Association of Realtors, my advice right now is do what you've always done. Even though this letter has went out, it is something we just don't go and change anything just yet, because we have to adhere by the code of ethics in regards to the National Association of Realtors until this has been kind of dissected a little bit more and there's more of a formal response. We should continue to do things the way we've always done it. There are many websites out there that address these type of questions that buyers and sellers might have in regards to school and crime. We don't have to bear the burden of that. Now, is there some leniency there and there's some changes coming? Possibly. But the reality is the burden's not on us right now to validate any of that. Now, they make the argument First Amendment thing. We'll see what happens, guys. We'll see what happens. All right. Wow. What a show, guys. Like I said, there will not be another show tomorrow. This is the last live stream for this week. I've got to hit the road, get to celebrate some agent successes and give out some awards tomorrow and Friday. So I'm excited about that, be hitting the road and driving around and doing that. So I can't wait to see some of those agents and just thank them for serving their clients so well. It has been a great week so far. I hope you guys got some value out of this live stream. I hope it does help you guys to be able to navigate this ever-changing real estate industry that we find ourselves in. So with all of that being said, let's wrap up this show. That is your real estate brief for today. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting the like button to tell YouTube you'd like to see more of this type of content. Consider subscribing to join a community of real estate agents that are focused on building a business that is relationship focused first. Obviously, there's so much more I could be covering, and I have ran out of time. So I will see you this coming Monday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, where you're watching me now. That means TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble. Hope you guys can see me there. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week and serve people extremely well. We'll see you.